Hello, Asheville and beyond. This is Kelly M. Beard from Karmic Tools and Lunar Reflections. Today is Friday, November 19th, 2010, and you'll have to excuse me if I have to hit the mute button periodically. I have a little bit of a cold, so we're going to press on through this because it is a very potent new moon and a very potent weekend that we are right smack in the middle of. Yesterday, Jupiter and Venus went forward, and we've been talking about that for months, pretty much. Big, giant moves and turnarounds and things happening and intense energy for sure. Let's just dive right on in. First of all, the big news of the week and what you'll probably have to deal with the most is this intense full moon in Taurus. So this full moon is really lighting up some corners for my Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo Aquarius babies. So you guys may feel it the most intensely. There is a lot to deal with, a lot coming up to the surface. Remember, full moons are what we do when we do some clearing and releasing and pruning from the seeds we planted 2 weeks ago during the new moon in Scorpio. So I'd also like to remind you, I'm not sure, I think we probably talked about it during Aries Libra as well, but during the springtime, we have what's called the 3 high moons, and it's the Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, and Gemini, Sag full moons during that time, and it's really a big deal. We initiate so much during spring. I have found it useful in recent years to reflect on 6 months later during fall when we have the reverse. And I'm just curious how things are going and what you've produced in the last 6 months. And if you can pay attention even just a little bit, you can generally be more productive with your energy and efforts throughout the year. And these 2 periods of time, these little 3-month periods each, are pretty juicy for manifesting in the physical, tangible world. So if you're focused, which Taurus is pretty good for, then you can really make these things happen. So how's it going 6 months later? You want to think back to May of 2010 when we had the Taurus new moon. So this Taurus full moon is a culmination of that 6 months later. And Taurus rules the garden. Scorpio's the invisible power that breathes life into the garden. But Taurus is the garden, so how is your garden doing? How are things growing together? What kind of clearing and release and sacrifice did the Scorpio new moon bring up for you? And perhaps 6 months ago when we had the Scorpio full moon, the sacrifice might have happened then and cleared a space for you that you've been maybe dealing with for the last 6 months. Now it's time to plant those new seeds. During Scorpio time is the most potent time of the year to plant seeds. And we are still in Scorpio time until Monday, the 22nd. The sun will move into Sag. So remember we talked about the full moons being at the last degree for this whole 6 months of Aries, which was last month. Taurus, this is only the second one in, so pace yourself because we're doing this all the way to spring 2011. And I got to say, by all accounts, including even some of the bigger social collective shifts and movements, that it is so clear to me that the individuals are getting really worked on mental, spiritual, emotional levels, preparing you for greater progress and probably a speed up of the progress come springtime. We have some giant movements coming in 2011 and 2012, much of which is talked about all over the country and the world. So you can find out more information about the changes with the Mayan calendar and the 2012 dynamics and Earth cycle. There's some big cycles converging all at one time. So we want to use these little lunations, the full moon, new moon each month, to really get ourselves together as individuals. And that is my philosophy. If the individuals get it together, then the globe will be okay. And there's enough overwhelm available for everyone, certainly. We don't want to give in to that. We recognize that there are some big things on the table to be dealt with, but we can do this one human at a time, one animal at a time, and really just pacing yourself, tuning into your heart, what is most important to you, and then focus on that piece, because no one human being can fix it all, save it all, change it all. You want to just do things at your level of consciousness in your little corner of the world with the tools and resources available right now, which is ever-changing. So we want to go with that flow each month. So we get together each week and really check in with what's happening. And for this next week, we're moving into Thanksgiving, and I just want to give everyone a heads up in this country, or for those souls that celebrate Thanksgiving this way, Wednesday, Thursday, late Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and early Friday, the moon is going to be in Cancer, which makes it very emotional. Cancer rules the mother energy, and so for those of us whose mothers have left this earth plane, it can be kind of sad around the holidays. It does tend to make me very weepy. We're going to have a quiet Thanksgiving with just our little trinity here, my husband and child and I. But I just want to give you a little heads up so that you can prepare yourself. It may be a little emotional because the full moon energy is still going to be kicking, and it's going to move through Taurus this whole weekend. So I want you focused at this moment on what's your garden doing these days, the garden of your life. That means your health and vitality, because Taurus has a lot to do with the body and your resources. Are you using what you've got? You know, there's a lot to be said for looking at what you have going on in terms of ideas, products or services that you offer to the world, and how can you look at them from a fresh perspective and maybe use them ever so slightly differently and unlock a new rhythm, a new flow. Okay, when you think of the garden, you want to think of things that you would plant next to each other so that they thrive and prosper, so that they grow together. We're not going to plant things next to each other that are going to choke the roots or suck up all the nutrient and leave another plant starving. We don't want to do that. So we're really working on balance these days, and full moon is going to shine a light in that corner maybe where you haven't been so balanced in your body work or with your resources. Remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus, so love and money are definitely on the table right now. And we have a tremendous amount of support for clearing, especially with all this powerful energy going on around us. Now, remember, this whole month is the beginning of the end of the summer retrograde. So the planets one by one are going forward. I think Uranus is the last man standing for December, and then we're still going to have to deal with a Mercury retrograde. So I'm going to get to a little bit of that soon as well. And we pre-recorded next week's Friday show, so you should be able to tune in for that and get a little more juice. That one ended up being a lot about the year-end and the new year initiation and what we're kind of dealing with where that's concerned. But for this week, you know, you want to focus on whatever you've got going on in terms of family or breaks from work, if work closes down, or maybe you're in some kind of industry where work picks up during this time. Either way, you want to work on quality versus quantity and focus on what you've been cultivating over the last 1 month, 6 months, 1 year. Okay, we've had a lot of planetary shifts since a year ago. November 2009 had a lot different kind of energy than what we're dealing with or facing at this time. So you want to make some new commitments at this point. Really allow yourself to look into those dark corners of where you may not have been using your resources or even your own strength properly, where you're draining things unnecessarily. And it basically means you've got to pull back in and reevaluate your values and priorities, what's important to you. And what's happening kind of across the board for everyone is what used to be important is just not important anymore, and things that weren't on the radar 6 months or a year ago are really vital right now. So because we are amongst these turnarounds, remember when planets change sign or direction, they gather intense energy and beam that down to us here on planet Earth, and it is a lot for the human body to process. So with Venus freshly direct, she only goes backwards every 18 months. Jupiter goes backwards every year to help us edit our story. So how did the last 4 months go in terms of editing the story you're telling? Are you recognizing where the story's not the same anymore and things, again, used to be true or just not true anymore? It doesn't make them right or wrong or bad or good or anything like that. It's just not true anymore. And because they went forward on the same day, I just feel really strongly that indicates that as your values and priorities have shifted, as you have renegotiated relationships and whatever your offerings are to the world as well, that you're ready to tell a new story. Now, there's going to be a slow kind of roll here, and just think of a snowball where you start really small and you keep rolling and it gets bigger and it gets faster and you get to the top of the hill and let it go. That is what we're going to be feeling until March. So right now, if you haven't had things, brought into the light, then this is the time it might pop up where your values have not quite been in alignment with what you say is important to you. So we're getting our heart center in alignment with our choices, and that may cause some ripples in the pond with family and friends and loved ones. That happens. But right now, Taurus has a lot to do with our stability and groundedness and being practical, but it also has to do with being beautiful and having substance and depth. Okay, we're not doing a lot of shallow stuff. When Scorpio's kicking, we are the deepest soul level work is what's on the table. And, if you're having things that are kind of hard to face coming up for you, just know that you are supported for this clearing. You want to face them sooner than later because I guarantee you they're just going to pop up another way. And if you can face certain ways and times where your values weren't in alignment with what you were saying or thinking or doing, now you know you're going to have to make some kind of sacrifice. And I highly recommend that you allow yourself to peer into these dark corners, because whatever willing sacrifice you can make, then that's one less kind of trauma or drama that the universe has to put on you by ripping things out of your hands. That's no fun for anybody. We really want to be clear about our base. Taurus has a lot to do with building, and the foundation is always the most important piece of any kind of building. So if you're working on your body and your physicality, this is the time to start. I know it's the holidays and it's really hard to do that, but what's more important, your health or that extra piece of pumpkin pie? I don't know. So you just want to tune in and decide how you're going to strengthen and fortify yourself to deal with the bigger shifts coming in 2011 and 2012. And essentially, that's what this whole 6 months is about. But for this week in particular, I just want you focused on your values and priorities and how things may have been misaligned thus far and how you can release certain things to get back into alignment. We really are focused on a lot of security issues. Taurus brings up our material security issues, and I understand 3D is very challenging these days, but this is why you have to think outside the box. How can you use what you've got a little differently to unlock a little bit of extra flow and open up some new energy that may have felt very stagnant for a while? And we really want to open that up. And basically, you have to remain heart-centered. Is it beautiful? Does it feel good? Does it feed you? Can you just not wait to get to it? This is what Taurus brings to the surface. So we do want to tune into sensuality and pleasure and rewards for our hard work. So a lot of times those things come up around this full moon, and with the intense emotions and things kicking, I just want you to be aware that the time period we've been in for the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, old lovers could have come back, old friends could have come back, estranged family members could have come back. I would take it with a grain of salt for now and just let things play out, and then you will see who's really got roots and who actually belongs in your circle going forward, because we're really pruning, okay? Full moon is all about releasing, so anything that's blocking your garden from blossoming fully, you want to let that go and clear some space. And we have a lot of support for doing that. I mean, the Taurus full moon brings up a lot of different things.